what you think. Look,
Hey guys, it's God Bars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 156th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So in terms of artists that I've had on the page before who are overdue for a return, Tupac would probably have to be near the very top of the list. I talked about his most popular release, All Eyes on Me, a good while back now, but even though Me Against the World is arguably the more concise and polished project, today I wanted to touch on the Pac album that's always been my personal favorite, that being the only LP he released under his sort of alias or alter ego Makaveli just 2 months after his death, which is the Don Killuminati, the 7 Day Theory. I've talked about this LP in multiple other videos and how I regard it in a special tier of posthumous albums like Biggie with Life After Death or Five Dog and A Tribe Called Quest on We Got It From Here, where the artist was already working on the project prior to their death, and we have to assume that it was released how they intended it to be, or at least with as much of their input as was possible. Outside of a slight misunderstanding regarding what Pac wanted the album title and artist name to be, to my knowledge, Machiavelli had pretty much done the entire project before his infamous murder. And if he did have more planned that we didn't get to hear, the producers, engineers, and executive producers definitely made it work with what they had. I feel like I should mention with this project one aspect of 90s hip hop quote unquote fans that I despise, or at least the more casual and discount ones, which is this insanely stupid notion that anytime there's a rap beef, you're like automatically obliged to pick the side of the artist whose music you enjoy more. Let's get this out of the way. You are not on the side of the rapper you defend when you go around commenting hate on the other party's music or take cheap shots about their personal life. The reason I feel like it's relevant to 90s and even 2000s hip hop is that any real head who really cares about the music will acknowledge that both Jay-Z and Nas are top tier rappers who together provided two of the most iconic hip hop diss tracks to ever grace the culture. Most of us are able to give it up for both. And even with the East Coast West Coast beef, someone like me who prefers Biggie overall as a rapper still loves Tupac and enjoys his music heavily, even when it's a diss track like the opening one on the Don Killuminati here, where I'm a giant fan of just about every artist he's ripping apart. But I still think that Bomb First is one of the most savage and ruthless diss tracks ever created, especially with the skits. From Mobb Deep to Hove himself, there's no part of me that feels like I should have some sort of allegiance to them, and this one-sided parasitic relationship is something so many fans just do not seem to get even to this day, which is that the person that they're fighting for doesn't know they exist, but more importantly, would be embarrassed if they knew they had fans like that. Diss tracks and even beefs on some level are an inherent part of our culture, and you should feel grateful that we have such amazing disses and not more dead rappers, considering Nas and Jay are both street dudes. Regardless of how you feel about them now, that's where they originated and soaked up their game. They've both always had plenty of guys from the hood around who were ready to do anything they wanted, especially at this time. So the fact that they've matured and buried the hatchet makes it mind-boggling to me that kids who weren't alive when it happened and have zero involvement or relation to it try as hard as they can to provoke the other side and stir the beef back up. But back to Machiavelli and his 1 LP with that moniker, one big reason it's always been my top Pac album is the unsettling atmosphere and aura it creates, partially due to the dark circumstances that surrounded it, and also because of how well it's actually executed. Tupac is really holding no punches here, the only exception being that little addendum on the cover where it says, "In no way is this portrait an expression of disrespect to Jesus Christ," which honestly I've always cringed at because I feel like it ever so slightly takes away from the intended purpose of the art. However, even with the added disturbing element of Tupac prophesizing his own death multiple times, the idea of Pac being crucified already resonated heavily through numerous hit pieces from critics, the negative media coverage, and of course the pointed finger of discount mothers like Tipper Gore, who insisted the art and music was the issue, and not the fact that they were buying their underage children explicit records without actually perusing the content themselves. It's crazy that I have to say this still in 2024, but it is not the artist's responsibility to monitor your children and the music they consume. That is your job as a parent, and you aren't doing them any favors by shielding their eyes from every form of music you find deplorable, because all that's going to do is make them rebel and probably get more into this quote unquote inappropriate music whenever they aren't being monitored as a form of protest. One of, if not the only remote positive that came from this whole Tupac Biggie Smalls situation is that, from what I can tell, the East Coast West Coast feud died down virtually overnight. And really, we have famed Minister Louis Farrakhan to thank for that, as I believe he was the one who actually organized the peace summit that came after Biggie died the same way as Pac within 6 months of each other. It seems everyone involved recognized that there was no outcome where hip hop would be able to thrive and grow in the conditions they were facing, and now it's one of those things where, again, every time I see some cringy 13-year-old try and pointlessly reinstigate this war that many of them learned about a week ago, it's just embarrassing. One of the many recognizable moments to come off this LP is the track Hail Mary, which doesn't just have a killer hook that's become iconic at this point, but it also sees the fiery energy from the first song carried over. Puck starts this classic track with the lines, "I ain't a killer, but don't push me, revenge is like the sweetest joy next to getting pussy." Picture paragraphs unloaded, wise words being quoted, keep the weakness in the rap game, and sewed it. But the 7 Day Theory includes a lot more than just themes of the war hip hop was soon to see bubble over. From playing a bit more to the female sensibilities on classic moments like Me and My Girlfriend, to racially motivated think pieces like White Man's World, we get a number of interesting topics on here from both Pac and the Outlaws. But Edie Mean and company were nowhere near the only features on the Don Killuminati, as we also hear guest appearances from the likes of Danny Boy, Aaron Hall, Val Young, Badass, Heard 'em Bad, and Casey and JoJo. The production on here is handled by the likes of Daryl or Big D Harper, Heard 'em Bad, Reggie Moore, Demetrius Ship, and QD3. When it comes to my three overall favorite songs on this posthumous classic, I think I would have to whittle it down to Bomb First or my second reply, Hail Mary and To Live and Die in LA. For honorable mentions on this one, I probably would have to go with tracks like Hold Your Head, Against All Odds, Just Like Daddy, Life of an Outlaw, Blasphemy, and Crazy. Thank you for watching my 156th video. Next time, we're going over to New York to talk about an album that dropped the same year, but couldn't have had a more different approach to the one Pac took here on 7 Day Theory, to the point he actually responded to their critiques of gangster rap on this LP. So look out for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments off this prolific statement of an album are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
Who would do such a thing? Look, I stand in the flame of a feeling we call pain. Father's Day mug, little hand shaped in clay. Carrier planes flew overhead in pockets.